Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me ask you a question. Have you ever noticed that what you wear has the power to change how you feel? Project Endure apparel is designed to remind you that easy won't make you stronger, and that growth is an uncomfortable choice that we all have the privilege to make every day. Look good, feel good, and perform good. Head to the link in the show notes to shop Project Endure apparel and keep on doing hard things. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 175. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and here in Philadelphia, we have a very, very special guest, Chynna Rubin. Chynna, how are you?
Hi, Joe. I'm great. I'm so honored to be on your podcast today and to be 175. What an amazing number. That's awesome.
It is a great number. It's, when I reflect back and think about all of the conversations I've had, it's a bit mind blowing to think that I've had 175 plus hours of conversation on this podcast. And so
Yeah.
if someone's listening and you're new, you have a whole lot of content to go back and consume, but not yet, because you have to stay here and listen to this one, which is going to be special. And so, Chynna, before I introduce you or share anything about who you are and how we know each other, if someone listening has no idea who you are, how would you introduce yourself to them?
So my name is Chynna Rubin. I am an entrepreneur. I am a team player. I'm a lover of life, wellness, self-care, growth, healing. I am family oriented. I have a great partner and he is amazing. I love to travel and kind of just live life to the fullest. So try to stay positive and just be here.
So there are a couple things that we'll touch on from that intro. However, what I will say is you didn't go with titles. You didn't say, I am a founder of this or an owner of that, or this is the degree I have. And I'm curious why you went with a bunch of adjectives as opposed to a bunch of titles.
I guess because I don't really like to put the label on I like to say stay modest, right? Once you start saying, hey, I'm a business owner, I've exceeded to this level, I feel like it kind of changes the way people react and act around you. So I just like to kind of stay modest and keep it low key most of the time. Um, yeah.
I love it. I try my best to do the same. And I think one of the things I appreciate about the adjectives and the descriptors is that those things can be channeled into anything that you do. And we as humans don't need to be defined by the roles that we have or the titles we hold. We can be so much more than that. And one of the things you used to describe yourself was a team player. And that's not something that I hear a lot of people say, especially a lot of people who are adults not actively playing team sports.
Right.
Why is that something you use to describe yourself?
I just feel like part of who I am is all the people that I have around me on my team. I wouldn't be where I am or who I am today if it was just myself. So I do like to give credit where credit is given, whether it be a business partner or a friend or a family member. I really think that they also help form me and shape me into the person that I am. So in whether it's work or fun or whatever it is, my team's really important.
So you'll understand this as we go through the conversation, but I like to ask questions about hard things.
Yeah.
So I'll ask this. What's the hardest part about being a team player?
Um, Making sure that you guys kind of are on the same page, I would say. It's really hard if you have a team player and they're not on the same page as you, because you can go multiple directions with that.
Mm,
So I think having people who have the same mindset and kind of the same goal and direction as you is really important. But it's also kind of hard to find that. So once you do find that in somebody, it's really special.
mm. So one of the other words you used was, and I might be saying this in the wrong tense, but healing or a healer, someone who's healed. And again, not a common adjective people will use to describe themselves, especially as the first introduction.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll get into this a bit more during our conversation. But why did you choose that word? Why is that a word that you see yourself as?
Um, I feel like I have been on a healing journey a lot lately, especially within the past couple years, and I feel like it's extremely important to heal from things. Um, so as much as I feel I've healed, I'd like to be able to give that back to other people and help them on their healing journeys because healed people heal people.
Mm.
So I think it's great.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
so before I hit you with the first big question of this conversation, why don't you share a little bit more about what you do on a day-to-day basis as an entrepreneur and as someone who's operating a business?
Yeah, so I have a chiropractic office here in Philadelphia with my brother. We opened it a little over 5 years ago now, which has been amazing. We opened it, and then shortly after it was COVID. Because we're a chiropractic office, we were luckily able to stay open during that time. And during that time, we kind of became a safe haven for a lot of people. While most of other places were shut down, like the gym and just so much was shut down. We became a place where people could go and feel safe and seen and heard and heal. So it's just very beautiful watching the whole transformation of it go. I was saying to somebody the other day that people who meet me now, they see a successful business where we're seeing 400 people a week, and it's great and it's huge. But also, when we started, it was just me and my brother. We had no money. There was one table, no signs. Like we were selling $20 adjustments just to get people in the door. So I think it's really important to just kind of remember where you started and where you came from in that as well.
Mm. What is the name of the business?
Abundant chiropractic.
Okay, cool. So, with that being said, tell me more about abundance, why that word is part of the business and part of your life.
Yeah. So abundance is just huge. It is everything, right? And I feel like when people hear abundant, sometimes they think maybe like wealth or money or how much they can make. And for us, it's really just about being abundantly yourself. How can you fill yourself up and be your best self? And through chiropractic, it's just we move the bone and God does the healing, we like to say. So we're able to provide people with the opportunity to become their best selves and their abundant selves, which is really
Mm.
beautiful.
Tell me more about that because that is such a deep phrase, and I'm wondering what it means to you because I imagine different people hearing that would interpret it in different ways. So, what does "We move the bone, God does the healing" mean to you?
Yeah, so it's basically saying that your innate self has the power to, I mean, the human body is just beautiful. I can't even like literally as it says, like the body heals itself. It's been happening for millions of years. So we just basically chiropractic provides a little bit of a life force into
Mm,
specific areas, and we move that bone right into the position that it's meant to be in. But your body's
mhm,
the one that's doing the healing. So it's really like we're just helping your body heal. And I feel like people think that chiropractic has to be about pain and everything, but it's really about everything. The whole body is connected. So we just really like to let people know that you don't have to come in just because you're in pain, but to kind of just want to be healthy and feel good.
yeah. And so, with that being said, we'll go back to one thing you've already stated, and then we'll jump into our first big question. So, you talked a little bit about how you and your brother began the practice, and it was just a single table, empty room, $20 adjustments. Just it sounds like a grind or the grind, as people would say.
Mhm.
Why did you choose to pursue that if you knew it was going to be so hard in the first place? Like what kept you two going during those early days?
So I think it's kind of hard to go into that without kind of talking about why and how we opened it to begin with, because so much of that goes into that question.
Okay, so
And
that is my cue to
yeah,
ask the next big
yeah,
question. This is perfect. All right. So, first big question.
yeah,
Through your life up until this point, what has been the hardest thing that you've ever had to handle that you did not get to choose for yourself?
right. So, thinking about that, I feel like there are two really big things that have happened in my life that have kind of changed my whole direction. One of them being my grandmother. She was the biggest light of our life. She was a badass. She was into real estate. She babysat us our whole childhood. We did so much with her, and she was just so positive. And all she did was want to help people. Like she went to the gym every day. She did everything she could to feel good. And then she also owned a bunch of properties, and she was murdered in her house. And I think that kind of was our cue. So my brother, let me go back a little bit on that. So prior to this horrific incident happening, my brother, me, and my grandma went to Cabo, and we were hanging out on a fishing boat, and we were manifesting having a chiropractic office one day in the city and how beautiful it was going to be. And we were fishing, and we were the only people who caught a fish that day, and it was great. And we weren't going to keep the fish because um, it was a lot of money to get it shipped back here. And she's like, no, I'm going to buy you this fish. And one day when you have an office, like you're going to hang it in your office. So we basically spent the whole day on this boat fishing. It was beautiful, manifesting like this chiropractic office. And then flash forward. So she owned some properties, and the house that she lived in was split into three. Um, so one, like years ago, she rented to this one lady, and basically she, I guess, told the lady, if you're ever experiencing anything, if you ever need anything, like I'll always be here for you. Like, let me know. So then flash forward, I guess it's about 5.5 years ago now, because we opened the office shortly after. I guess this woman, they don't really know, but I think she kind of just like, I think she was probably on some drugs. She kind of went a little crazy and went to my grandma's house. My grandma was not home, but my friend, her best friend, Lorraine, my Aunt Lorraine was there. So the woman went to my grandma's house with her little 4-year-old son, and basically killed her best friend. And my grandma kind of walked in on it. And then she ended up killing my grandma as well, in front of her child. So it's like a pretty graphic scene. And then she ended up living in my grandma's house for the next 4 days, until there was like no one had heard from my grandma and police and all of that stuff. So I feel like that situation for me was just like, I mean, this woman, literally the greatest angel that I know. How could something so horrific happen like that, you know? And I mean, I still talk to her every day. It's definitely one of the hardest things that has ever happened to me. Um, and my brother was doing chiropractic in Colombia at the time. So I called him and I told him what had happened, and he needed to come home. And then we decided it was time to open the office in Philadelphia, and he needed to be with family. And that's kind of what got us kickstarted on opening the office. So a lot of that drive comes from that story, and that grief and that trauma. Um, but now we have this beautiful office because of it, and I don't know if we would have even opened the office when we would have opened it, if that didn't happen. So yeah, it's a lot.
Thank you for being so brave and for sharing that.
Yeah.
I think for people listening, I'm not sure if this part is clear, but and actually for me, I'm not sure if this part is clear, but I've been to the office. There is a fish on the wall in the office.
Yeah.
Is that the fish?
That is the fish. Yes, we finally hung it up behind the desk. So the fish is hanging on the wall in the office. And we hadn't hung it for a while because we thought it was heavy because it's a big fish. But once we took it out of the box, we realized it's only like 15 pounds. And we're like, this is so light. Like, so now it's hanging on the office wall and it's such a beautiful reminder. And she's always there. Like, we feel it in the office all the time. So,
Mm. When you say you talk to her, what are the conversations like, if you don't mind sharing?
yeah. Well, so my boyfriend and I, we pray every night before bed. And so we always kind of say the same type of prayer. And we always do pray for her. But I feel like whenever there's certain situations, we just bought a building and we're going to be moving the office into a new space. And honestly, we just kind of like talk out loud, like as silly as that sounds, like, is this what's meant to be happening? Is this the right direction for us? And I feel like something always shows up, whether it be like three angel numbers or looking at your phone and seeing like 444. There's always like little cues. Even the sunshine, like I feel my angels in the sunshine. Um, so yeah, it's really nice. Like I feel like she's still surrounded by me so much, which is really powerful.
Mm. So I don't know if you have a great answer to this, but I'll ask it because I'm sure people listening are wondering.
Yeah.
How do you go from something like that happening to the positive, upbeat, optimistic, well spoken, put together person here on this podcast
Yeah.
talking about that time that is, I'm sure, still so unbelievably hard?
Yeah. Um, I would say it wasn't always that easy. There was a lot of hate and rage and
Mm.
anger, and the trial didn't happen for 2 years later. So it was still kind of dealing with, is she even going to get away with this? Is she going to go to jail? So there was a lot of mixed emotions, I would say. And I definitely did not heal right away. And I feel like I'm still on that healing journey from that situation. Um, there was a time where I was like, all right, I just don't want to feel what's happening. So I'm just going to go out and have drinks with friends for 4 nights in a row. And then you're like, toxic behavior. Um,
Mm.
so I feel like I'm very aware right now and where I'm at in my life. But after it first happened, there were a lot of times that I maybe resorted to toxic behaviors or done things that I'm not proud of. And it's kind of nice to just kind of see how far I've come from that situation in my healing journey too, because those are the toxic things that I don't really do anymore, which is nice.
Mm. I think I have to give you a compliment. I think you might win the award for most fitness classes at most different studios in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Uh, I feel like every time I open up Instagram, you're holding up a sign for
Oh my
100 classes
goodness.
here, 200 classes there.
Yeah.
Is fitness a big part of the way that you've learned to deal with this?
I would say fitness is a big way of dealing with it. But also for me, like I like to tell people I am a fitness girly, not because I am trying to reach a certain goal, but because I truly enjoy it. And for me, it's like a social thing. So instead of now going out to get drinks to not think about what has happened. Now I'm like, okay, why don't we go to a workout class? So a lot of times for me, like workout classes, certain ones, and maybe sometimes I do 2 or 3 classes in a day if I have the time. But sometimes it's more of a social thing. And I was thinking about the other day because I remember there was a time that I would not go to fitness classes if I did not have a friend going. I felt so uncomfortable just showing up to a new space or a new class and not knowing like if I was going to be able to do it or do that workout or if there were moves I wouldn't know. So for me, a lot of the time, like I like to be that for other people now. And when people come into the office, even if they're like getting back in their fitness journey, I'm like, hey, like we can take a class together. Like I want to help you get into that journey too. Um, so I definitely do take a lot of classes. But I also just enjoy a bunch of different things. I love yoga, I love Pilates, I love HIIT, I love running, and it's not just that one thing. I love it all, and I meet so many great people, like-minded people that are kind of healthy to be around, which is nice.
Mm. So, with that being said, I mean, I would imagine there are a lot of people listening who are dealing with their own version of hard and maybe in a place where they recognize, okay, I don't want to be drinking to deal with this. I don't want to be around this group of people anymore to deal with this. I don't want to be doing these destructive, toxic things anymore.
Mhm.
What was it like to transition from those toxic things to these healthier things? And did you need help to do that, or did you figure it out on your own?
Um, so it's kind of tricky. My current boyfriend, he does not drink. And I think that has been a blessing in disguise for me. I used to, whenever I would go out to dinner, I would at least have a couple drinks. I would go out on the weekends. I would eat crappy. And just him being a solid anchor for me is like
Mm,
life changing.
mm,
Uh, I don't feel the need to have a drink every time I go out to dinner. Um, and I don't even want to go out to the clubs anymore. Like I want to be my best self, and seeing him do that for himself, I think it kind of comes back to me a lot, which is very powerful because it just makes us even stronger as a team.
mm,
Um, but yeah, I would just say it kind of depends who you surround yourself with, right? The people that I was going out and partying with, like I don't really hang out with them anymore. Um, they're not the people I really want to be around. So I kind of just changed my circle and stick to the people who are going in the right direction. Um,
mm.
it was a season, which is great, and every season brings me closer to who I meant to be and where I meant to be. But right now, that's just not a season that I still want to be in.
Yeah. So, two things. One, I think that it's taken me, and I'd be curious to hear from you, but it's taken me a long time
Mhm.
to realize that when we move on from certain people or certain chapters, it doesn't need to mean that those people are any less than, or that they are not good people, good human beings. It just simply means that that chapter, that group, that thing is no longer for us in our season, and that you can move on while simultaneously still caring about the people that you're leaving behind. That's a really hard thing, I think, for a lot of us to come to terms with. What was that like for you to leave those groups behind, so to speak?
So I feel like I most of my life have been a very big people pleaser. I've always been someone who reached out to everybody, checked in on everybody, um, and said yes to everybody. So I think that the easiest part was learning that it's okay to say no. If I don't want to do something, like just tell them, be honest, say, I don't feel like going out tonight, or I don't want to do that. And that's okay. Whereas before I would just be like, yeah, sure. And then I would go out and then I would drink. And then the next morning I would wake up and I would feel like crap, but then I would do it again. And it was kind of like an endless cycle. Um, but it is okay to leave people in different chapters. And there's so many people that we still haven't met yet who are gonna bring us so much in our futures as well. But I feel like it's just really important to find the people that you align with, and the people aren't gone forever. Like I still run into people that I used to go out with all the time and ask them how they're doing. But for me, it also kind of is like a trigger to when I used to do that stuff. And I don't really have an interest of saying, oh, like, let's go get dinner. I'm like, I kind of like to leave those people in that season, um, and not really bring them into the future.
Yeah. I'm gonna share a quick anecdote that's not mine, but I think it serves a point that yeah, it serves a point, so I'll explain.
Yeah.
I have a friend from church, and he has had this kind of circuitous journey with his faith. And in college, he was very, go to church every weekend, very big into inviting friends, come to church with me, you should experience this. And there was this one person in his life, this friend, who he would over and over just try to say, hey, man, like, don't go out and drink, just come to church with me instead the next morning. And this person would just go out and drink and ignore everything that my friend said. So fast forward, my friend, gets out of college and kind of starts to fall away from his faith. So now he's kind of fallen away from the thing that was once very important to him. And years later, he runs into this kid from college. And the kid from college runs up to him and says, hey man, you'll never believe it. I found God, and, faith, and like, you got to come to church with me. And my friend, like, it hit him right in the chest, because the very thing that he was trying to encourage this person to do, who he left behind, was actually the same person who came back to remind him and bring him back to the thing that was once so important. And so I share that because even though someone might not be in this chapter of your life, it doesn't mean that they can't come back and be part of a future chapter.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful. I think it's also really powerful because we do, in certain seasons, see other people's potential, and maybe they can't see their potential in themselves at that given time. And I know just with past relationships, it's something that I've gone through where I've really seen someone's potential, but until they can see it themselves, they're not going to find it. So I think that is really powerful, and I love that you kind of brought the whole church thing into it because, well, I'm Jewish, but we work locally with a church on Fifth Street, and my boyfriend and I, we that's kind of how we like started us. It was like 3 weeks into us dating, and I was like, we were closed one Sunday, and I was like, "Do you want to go to this church with me?" I was like, my patients have it. I keep telling them I want to come check it out, and he was like, "Yeah, sure." And I was like, "Wow!" Like even in himself, that he was like 3 weeks into like dating me, was like, "I'll go to church." So we went there and it was so powerful. It was all about love and light, and we were just so connected. And it was in that moment that I realized like I didn't want anybody else and that he was going to be my person. And it was such a powerful thing. And even till this day, they do a couples group, and we do the couples group, and it's just so empowering for us to put our faith and all of that. And into God and know that he kind of, I feel like, really brought us together, which is nice.
Aw, I
Yeah.
love that. I'm such
Mhm.
a sap when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'll share this, right? I think I have met your boyfriend for 30 seconds the entire I was in the office, and
Yeah.
I've told you this multiple times. He brought you flowers and he left, and I said, "Oh, is it your anniversary or what was that?" And you said, "It's March 1st. He brings me flowers on the 1st of every month." And I was like, "I gotta step it up. That's top notch."
Yes, he is. He is an angel. The first of every month, he starts it off. He brings me flowers. We say affirmations. It's empowering.
So I'll tie the faith or the concept of faith back into my other question, which was you said that you believe every chapter is bringing you closer to the person that you're meant to be.
Mhm.
Where did that come from? And if someone listening is just like, yeah, I don't buy it, right? Like there's no way this hard thing right now is helping me in any way, shape, or form. It just stinks.
Mhm.
So one, how did it come about for you, that belief? And then two, what would you say to that person?
I just feel like there's such a twisted beauty in trauma and grief and in all the lows that people experience. And I think that once we're able to grow and heal through that, it just brings us closer and closer to our purpose and who we're meant to be. And I think it's a really powerful thing to know your purpose and to wake up every day with a purpose, and kind of just be grounded in that.
Mm. So I have to highlight what you just said because if that's not a trademarked sentence, it should be, and you should have it. The twisted beauty of trauma. That is amazing.
Mhm.
Um, there are two quotes that come to mind for me, so I'll read them. One is from Khalil Gibran, who said, "Out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars."
Mhm.
And the other is from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who said, "The most beautiful people we have known are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of the depths. These persons have an appreciation, a sensitivity, and an understanding of life that fills them with compassion, gentleness, and a deep loving concern. Beautiful people do not just happen."
Mhm. Wow, I love them, both of them. I think that's really special, especially the word compassion really stuck out to me. To be compassionate for other people, and something I'm really working on right now is giving other people grace. Um, my parents have recently gone through a divorce, and it's kind of strange when you find yourself now, you're like, as an adult, I feel like it kind of hits you a little bit harder, but I'm trying to learn to give both of them grace and understand that they are their own people too, and everyone goes through their own things that you don't know about. So that's really beautiful.
Yeah, I love that word as well. And From there, I would love to ask another hard question, if you will, maybe a bit lighter, but we'll
Yeah.
find out. Um, when you look back at your life to this point, what is the hardest thing that you've ever done on purpose, and why have you chosen to do that thing?
I think the hardest thing, oh, that's tough. I would say to forgive myself, forgive other people. I feel like until you truly learn to forgive, you can't move on with your life. Forgiveness heals, love heals, and it's really powerful. It's hard to forgive, especially because everything I truly believe does happen for a reason. Um, but again, you have to give yourself grace and you have to give other people grace. And if you want to keep growing, you got to forgive.
Mm. What do you think the hardest part about forgiveness is? Why is forgiveness and grace something that's so challenging, whether we're trying to give it to someone else or we're attempting to give it to ourselves?
Um, I would say it's challenging because people see everything differently.
Mm.
So forgive other people, they might be looking at a situation differently than you are. So to be able to see eye and eye on that same situation and to come to that mutual forgiveness, I feel like takes a little bit more.
Mm.
And within yourself, it's hard to forgive yourself because I mean, you just don't want to let yourself down, right? You want to be the best person that you can be. But we all make mistakes and we all do things that aren't right. And you got to learn to forgive yourself. It is hard. And there's still things I'm trying to forgive myself for and grow and heal from. But I feel like it's a journey. So,
So I've got a quote again, and then a thought. So the quote is from Lewis Smedes, who said, "To forgive is to set a prisoner free, and to discover that the prisoner was you."
mhm,
And before I share my other thought, I think on that quote, one of the things that stands out to me is that sometimes even forgiving other people might not have so much to even do with the other person as
mhm,
it does with the way we've interacted with, or the way we've held on to certain things, or the way we've processed it all.
right.
And I think if we can forgive ourselves, we can then forgive other people. And I'm wondering if you see that there's an order in your life with forgiveness, if you do need to forgive yourself before you can forgive others, or if it's possible to forgive others before you forgive yourself.
I think it could go both ways, honestly. I really do think it is you need to learn to forgive yourself, but going along with that, a lot of that is about self-love and loving yourself. And if you can't love yourself, I don't know if you can forgive yourself.
Mm.
So I feel like there's a lot of deep stuff that goes in with forgiving yourself and a lot of little steps that you have to climb to get to that level. Um, Whereas for other people, sometimes it's easier to forgive them because you don't want to lose those people. Um, so sometimes we forgive people even though we might not be fully ready to, just to try to hold on to them a little bit longer.
Mm.
Um, so I kind of swing both ways for that question.
Yeah. I appreciate that answer. There's a lot to think on. I
Mhm.
almost feel like this is one of those rare instances in a podcast recording where I need to pause our conversation, which we won't. We'll keep going. I'll listen back, but like
Yeah,
listen to the last 3 minutes again and just dig deep for myself.
yeah,
Um, the one thing though that I do want to point out is that I don't think that you can get to a place of true forgiveness
mm,
without going through the things that are uncomfortable. I don't think that we can forgive ourselves for things until we move through the reflection, looking back on dissecting some of the things that have happened. I think a lot of times people try to brush things under the rug. And I
yeah,
don't think you could get to a place of true forgiveness, true self love until you've worked through those things that are painful or uncomfortable. You can't beat around the bush.
yeah. I totally agree with that. And sometimes that's just hard, I guess. But I feel like great tools like journaling is really amazing, and being able to get it out of your mind and onto paper is really helpful.
Mhm.
Um, Affirmations and staying positive. There's so many great tools to just kind of take the right steps in that direction.
Mhm. I would agree. And I think that for someone who doesn't even know where to start when it comes to digging deep or looking inward. I agree, journaling is a great tool. I also think that having conversations with people that you trust and you feel safe with is a great tool as well.
Mhm.
Because sometimes when you keep things in your head, it's just really hard to make sense of them.
Yeah.
And so, if you have those people in your life, I would encourage you or nudge you if you're listening to start to gently open up to them and explore what that could look like.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, the other thing that I ask all of the guests on this podcast is what the word endurance means to them. And before you give your answer, I want to share a bit of a conversation we had a few weeks back.
Hmm.
So, for context, we were talking about business things. We had met up to get some coffee, and you were talking about all of your pursuits outside of the chiropractic office. One of those is real estate, and I just asked the question of, when it comes to risk and, taking on new properties and all of these things, how do you not let that overwhelm you? Like, how do you not think, like, what if like all of these renters drop on me at the same time? Or what if this happens? What if that happens? And you just said so calmly and with a lot of conviction, I just would never let myself get to that point. Like, I would figure it out. I think you said I would send 100 Facebook messages to get a renter and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I left feeling really inspired. And in my eyes, that's something that does tie into the concept of endurance. So for you, if you had to just say the word endurance means blank, what does it mean to you?
The word endurance means to me the hard work you do after doing the hard work, right? So I guess endurance is when you're ready to give up, what keeps you going.
Mm. Huh. The hard work you do after you've already done the hard work. Yeah. How do you find the balance between recharging and working? Because when I hear that phrase, my mind, which is twisted, I'll give everyone that, goes to just like no rest, get up earlier, stay up later, work harder. That is, I can speak from experience, not the best way to do it. How do you find the line between hard work, hard work, hard work, recharge?
Yeah. I think I'm at a point in my life where I feel pretty grounded in who I am. And I think along with that, it comes knowing that in order your body needs rest. Your mind needs time to heal. I do set aside time each week to do things, self-care, self-love. I'm very big on self-love. So I make sure that I fill my days with that stuff. And sometimes the hard work for me might not be hard work for other people. Like simple as a gym class, right? That could be really hard work for somebody else. For me, I consider that self care. So I guess it kind of just depends the way you look at it and the way your mindset is working at that time.
Mm,
But definitely rest is important. Um, when you sleep, you heal. You need sleep, right? You need to heal. So it's important to slow down and kind of ground yourself back to who you are, your purpose, and all
mm.
of that.
So, along those lines, and yet at the same time different, how do you navigate these two seemingly opposite things, which is sharing your light with the world, showing up in business, on social media, in relationships, XYZ? How do you balance that out with not acting from a place of ego? Or, in other words, a better way to phrase that is, how do you make decisions from the inside out rather than the outside in? What does that look like in your mind, in your life?
So I feel like you have to give with no expectation of return.
Mm,
It's really powerful. I don't, especially just in chiropractic. I would say we our motto is to give, to love, to serve, to do with no expectation of return. And I feel like that's really it. Once you learn to give and you're not expecting anything back, more gets brought to you. Um, so I feel like that kind of fills my cup. The more I give, the more I heal,
mm,
which is very beautiful. I was thinking about it this week. So it's Friday. This week we have had in the office one of our patients, her best friend, died in a surfing accident. She has come by every day this week, not because she has needed an adjustment, but because she's needed a hug every day this week. We've had a patient who had a miscarriage this week and needed a hug this week. We had one who had a breakup. So I feel like we're just building this like community, and being that light for those people and so many other people. Those were just a few examples. We see over 400 people a week. Um, that fills my cup. That recharges me. That I'm able to give back and kind of be a safe haven for other people.
That's so beautiful, and, this is some might call this woo-wooey, like, "Oh," like, but I think that sometimes people look for things, in a service or a product or an experience, and really all they're looking for is another person who sees them and cares about them and holds space for them, and I know that sounds so simple, and that is so much more than or you do so much more than just that, but I think that is overwhelmingly more important than most of the things that are out there that people seek. And it's hard to measure, it's hard to quantify, but it is so important. And I love what you said about giving without expectation of return. I think a lot of people are afraid of that because they think, well, what if I try it and it doesn't come back to me? Then I lost something.
Mhm.
How do you or how would you combat that narrative of if you give and nothing comes back, or you give and what you wanted doesn't come back? How would you say maybe you didn't lose something in that interaction? Maybe you actually gained something.
Yeah. I would kind of say to bring it back to the whole twisted beauty that we were talking about, right? So when you give, you're not necessarily going to get something back right away, right? That might come back months or years later, but in some way, you will at some point find that twisted beauty of what you gave. Um, and I just feel like it's really important to give with love, and the more love you give, the more love is going to come back to you, in one way or another. The
Yeah.
mindset game, right? So I feel like the mind is amazing. So you can rewrite anything in your mind. You just got to figure out how to keep it positive to see that return.
Yeah. Now, before I wrap up and lead us to the final question, is there anything else that we touched on, but you want to expand on, or we didn't touch on that you want to share in our conversation today? Because I feel like, and you might not, I don't want to put pressure on you. I feel like you have so much to give in terms of energy and insight and wisdom. So if there's anything, we'll share it, and if not, we'll just keep moving.
Yeah, I think we pretty much talked about a lot. If there is anybody listening, I am always a safe haven for anybody out there, for whatever reason. If it's you need a friend or you need someone to talk to or you need advice, I always want to be a safe haven for other people. Um, in the beginning, I said there were two things that I feel like have really changed the trajectory of my life. The other being in college, my best friend took her own life. And I feel like that also plays a huge role in who I am today and why I try to make sure that people can see the beauty in themselves. So if anybody out there is hurting or in need of anything, I'm always a safe haven.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, and, I didn't know that about your story. It it blends into this last question, but maybe to make it a bit more personal, if you're okay with it, I'll ask you a variation of the last question. Is that okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
What was your friend's name in college?
Megan.
Megan.
Yeah.
So I end these podcasts by sharing that there are people listening all over the world who are going through all different kinds of things, and some of those people are really hurting. And I'll ask the guest, if you could say anything to that person who's hurting, what would you say? And in this case, I would love to know, and I don't know if you've thought about this. I'm sure you have at some point, but if you could go back and speak to Megan and say anything to her while you had the time, is there anything that you would share with her?
I feel like there are so many things that I would share with her. I feel like it's really hard because we live together and I didn't really see the signs of this happening. Um, So I would probably say that I'm sorry that I didn't see you deeper, see this level, and see what you were going through. Um, but again, as we talked about earlier, I still talk to her every day, and she is one of my greatest angels. And she knows how much I love her and how much everybody loved her. And that was just another big tragedy that added to who I am today. Um, and I love her. So,
I love that.
yeah.
If somebody out there listening is going through something hard and they are here to hear your voice right now, is there anything else you would share with them?
I would just say to find your purpose, be authentically you, don't care what other people think, and the world is your oyster. You can do anything that you want to do. Don't let anyone put any limits on it.
Mm. With that being said, China, if people want to connect with you or follow along or send you a message or come get an adjustment,
Yeah.
where are the best places to do those things?
Instagram is great. I don't know if you'll put that at the
Mhm.
end, but also I am so open to giving out my phone number if anybody does want to connect on a personal level. They can always come to the office. They can always text that number as well. Email. I'm always available.
I'll link things down in the description to make it easy. And I would encourage anybody listening who's even considering reaching out to reach out. And yeah, China, I appreciate you so much. I appreciate our friendship and everything that you're doing to make the world a better place. And I know this conversation is going to impact many. I know it's already impacted me. So thank you.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for having me. It's been such an honor, and I can't wait to see you keep growing and our friendship flourish.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.